Hello, my name is Minnie, and I'm going to tell you a story. And this story is about a boy called Lom. Now, like many of you, Lom loves stories. Unfortunately for Lom, he has a grandfather who is a wonderful storyteller. So every night before Lom goes to bed, his grandfather tells him a story. Amazing stories. Stories about heroes and villains, about dragons and school teachers, any story you can imagine. And Lom loved these stories so much that he wanted to keep them forever. And so he did keep them. Lom kept the stories in a box. And every morning, Lom would go to school, and his friends would ask him, Lom, tell us the story that your grandfather told you last night. Oh, I bet it was a really good one. But Lom would always say, nuh-uh, these stories are just for me. So Lom never told the stories. He never ever shared them. But he really enjoyed hearing them. So every night, his grandfather told him a story, and Lom would take the story and put it into the box. And this went on for years and years and years, and Lom grew from a boy into a man. And it came to pass that Lom found somebody who he loved more than anybody else in the world. And so, as people do, they decided to get married. And the night before Lom's wedding, his grandfather told him the very last story, the most incredible, wonderful, amazing, funny, scary, adventurous story. And Lom took the story and he put it into the box. And then Lom went to sleep. And that night, the box began to rattle, shake, and the stories started to get angry and agitated. They all started to wake up and say, oh, you got your elbow in my face. Right, that's it. I've had quite enough of all this. There's one too many of us in here. And that Lom, he listens to us. He puts us in this little box. Never lets us out, though, does he? Never shares us. Never tells the stories. Never see the light of day, do we? So you know what I'm going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Well, you know how it's Lom's wedding tomorrow? Yeah, it's his wedding, Yeah, well, what I'm going to do, right, is because you know how he's got to make that really long journey through the desert on the back of a donkey. Oh, yeah, we know the journey. Well, what I'm going to do is I am going to turn myself into a well. Oh, a well, are you? Yeah, a well. And what I'm going to do is when Lom gets really thirsty because it's really hot in the desert, and he drinks from my waters, I'm going to give him a really bad headache, and that'll teach him a lesson, won't it? Oh, it's a brilliant idea. Yeah, I'll teach him a lesson. I've got an idea. What are you going to do? Well, what I'm going to do, right, is I'm going to turn myself into a watermelon. Oh, a big juicy one. And when Long gets all hungry and thirsty and he eats me, I'm going to give him really bad gutsache, and that'll teach him a lesson, won't it? Oh, it's a brilliant idea. Yeah, it's a good gutsache. Yeah. What I'm going to do, what are you going to do? What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn myself into a snake. And when I bite him, he'll die. Yeah, it's a great idea. It's a brilliant idea. Well, fortunately for Lom, his grandfather was getting his clothes ready for the wedding the next day, and he heard the stories, plotting and planning in the box. And so his grandfather knew that he would have to do something. And in the morning, Lom woke up and he got dressed in his finery and he went downstairs to get on the back of the donkey to make that long journey through the desert. But leading the donkey, to Lom's surprise, was his grandfather. And he was a bit surprised, but he thought, that's a very nice gesture. Grandfather wants to take me to the temple. How lovely. And so they set off on their journey. And they'd not been going long when Lom came across a well. And he said, oh, grandfather, can we stop at this well? Because I'm a bit thirsty. I'd love to have a drink. But grandfather said, and they carried on. A bit later, Lom and his grandfather came across a big, juicy watermelon. Oh, grandfather, can we stop so that I can eat this watermelon because I'm very thirsty and a little bit hungry? But grandfather said, and they carried on. And they got to the temple, And the ceremony was in full swing. Lom and his new spouse were making their vows, when suddenly the doors of the temple burst open, and they saw coming down the aisle Grandfather holding a very big stick and screaming. Yeah! He was running straight for Lom, and Lom lifted his arms in front of himself to protect him. But Grandfather lifted up the rug beneath his feet, raised his stick, and killed the snake that he found there. Oh. Well, the wedding ceremony carried on, and a bit later at the banquet, Lom found his grandfather, who was very exhausted from the day's proceedings. And he said, "Grandfather, thank you so much for protecting me from the snake, but I'm confused. How did you know that snake was going to be there?" And Lom's grandfather explained about the stories in the storybox and about the well and the watermelon. And he said, "Lom, I forgot to tell you the most important thing. I've told you all these stories, but you never passed them on. You let them come, but you never let them go." And so Lom thought about that. And that night, he opened the storybook and he told his very first story. And the next day, he told another to a friend, and another the day after that, and another to anybody who would listen. But he always remembered to tell them, let them come, let them go. If you like this story, then pass it on.